Hi guys, so I wanted to do this video today to talk about alternative lifestyles. And as you know, if you followed me for some time, I'm pretty I've got my heart set on following that myself, and basically breaking away from the system as much as possible, for so many reasons. And actually something that really struck me today was just how much time we spend doing things that we don't want to do. And for instance, for me to get to this beautiful piece of nature today, which is kind of where I feel my heart lies and where I feel more myself and more in tune with my true self. It took me about an hour and a half to get across town. And that's the kind of stuff that I want to be getting away from, basically. And that kind of, the daily grinds, the clocking in, the clocking out, the paying of rent, which is probably my biggest kind of complaint about living in this system. The fact that, I have to spend about three-quarters of my income paying my rent, which is absolutely crazy. And if you remember, the kind of official figures for how much we're supposed to be spending on rent versus, the rest of our lives is a third. And I mean, even that's crazy, isn't it? If you look at how things were, I don't know, 50 years ago. So this is the kind of capitalist system that we live in. And I sort of made it my mission about 5 years ago when I had this awakening, to start moving away from it. So I'm here today with John,
Hi.
who lives a particularly interesting lifestyle right now. And I just wanted to kind of, have a chat with him about what it was that motivated the sort of changes that he's made in his life, which are pretty drastic. So the first question that I'd like to ask you was, do you feel that you had some kind of, spiritual awakening or some kind of awakening, which led you to want to make lifestyle changes?
Yeah, well, one of the first things that really happened to me was my diet change. I went into a plant-based um, diet, and it's almost like it brings you closer to nature and connects you with the planet, um, and not processed foods, because I feel like when you put these processed foods in your body, it's just the same as putting any other kind of toxic element into your food. Hey, buddy.
Yeah, and actually, that's exactly how I feel as well. So it's interesting that you should say that. I mean, I think the first thing for me, the first step in my awakening process, was to change my diet. Would you say as well that if you're not taking kind of toxins into your body and you're looking at, drinking clean water, which isn't fluoridated, would you say that that massively contributes to a speeding up of your kind of, spiritual understanding?
Yeah, well, I would say so, but I kind of organically just started. Well, I've always drank clean water. I never drank water from the tap. And in the United States, I don't know if you mentioned, but I'm from the United States.
As if you can't
It's
tell.
easy to get water from, like, it's 30 cents a gallon, and they have water refill stations everywhere, and it has like reverse osmosis and UV filtration, and then actually it's 2 times reverse osmosis. So it's really easy to source water, um, and that's one of the one downfalls I see in Europe. I wish they had more water filtration systems, just because like people use abundance of these plastic water bottles, and that's another toxic thing, because like if it gets in the sun, then the plastic can leach into the water, and it's not a good method to source your water.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, as we know, there are chemicals sort of leaching into our food supply and into our water supply and therefore into our bodies. And, our bodies contain large amounts of plastic. Um, and so, kind of, along the lines of, what you've done with your diet, what other changes have you made to your lifestyle to kind of move towards more living in line with how you feel that we should naturally be living?
Well, one of the first things I also did was I slowed down. Like, I really appreciated life, and I was more observative about like what other people are doing with their lives, and I noticed like how people live in such chaos, and they're so like rushed to get to work, and they don't think about like how they're affecting other people. Like when you're driving, especially, that's like a really toxic environment. You were just talking about
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Yeah,
Um, like people almost like kill each other just because they want to get there faster. And really, like getting there faster isn't really gonna make or break your life. Like it's appreciating the journey to get there is gonna make or break your life because you have
yeah,
to like be positive. And when you're rushing and speeding to get somewhere, you're not really appreciating things. You're not bringing positivity into your life, you know, and that's really, I think, one of the most important things is just um, being positive and putting, um, you know, food that was has good energy into your body.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And I have spoken about in videos before, haven't I, how important I think it is that we're mindful of the energy of everything that we take in, you know, whether that be food, the people that we,
yeah,
you know, encounter in our lives and that we have
totally.
close personal relationships with, and just being, you know, more aware. And like you were saying, you know, when you become more, I'm going to use the word conscious because I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
And you just you start to live more intuitively, and then you just kind of get to trust your intuition when it comes to making choices. So in terms of your actual living circumstances, tell us a little bit about that and about the fact that, you know, you've been basically traveling around a large portion of the world for the last year
yeah.
while still working.
Well, I kind of manifested this dream after 20 some odd years. I was 12 years old and I got into web development, and I had the dream that I wanted to be able to work wherever I wanted in the world. And I, you know, really was passionate about it also, which was important. And maybe the passion was to like travel the world. I have no idea, but I know that my life has led me to this point. But so I started in April last year. I kind of was working towards this goal over the long period of time, and I think like the veganism and just all this positive energy in my life catapulted me into, you know, manifesting my dreams a lot quicker because I was
Yeah,
kind of like um,
yeah,
what's the word? I was just pessimistic about the whole process. Like, oh, I could never do that. Oh, you know, I'm never going to be able to work remotely. My boss won't let me. But I manifested it into a positive way, and I had positive energy in coming into my life, and like positive people around me. And so basically, I bought a Volkswagen van and I retrofitted it so that I could live in it. And I traveled across the U.S. for 6 months, um, close to 7 months. I saw like some of the most beautiful places in the world, and I also saw some really toxic environments where animals were living in horrible conditions. It was really upsetting, but also met incredible people, had delicious food, and just living life like to the fullest. And I think how people are supposed to live, like um,
yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, it's what you touched upon there as well is how we can actually manifest these things, how we can
yeah,
actually
totally,
step into our own power, how we can use the system to our advantage. Because, you know, let's face it, it's very difficult for us to completely buy out of it because, you know, we're obviously, if we're paying
yeah.
taxes, if we're buying food, and all the rest of it, you know, we're still involved within it. But it's that kind of, you know, I think when I gave up on the kind of all or nothing thinking around it and I decided to use it to my advantage, that's when my life really took off as well.
Uh,
Um,
I
yeah,
just wanted to say, you know, one of the important things that you want to do with your life is be conscious about where you're spending your money because you want it to go into something positive. So when you go to a farmer's market, you're supporting that local farmer and you're not contributing to like the big corporations that are really creating a lot of havoc in this world.
mm,
You know, you want to put your money where you feel like it's going to put something positive back into the universe. So like buying Aura CBD oil is one where she's really doing positive things on helping people with their health. Um, you know, but another person that I follow is Dr. Robert Morse. He's a naturopathic doctor,
We
and
can put the link at the bottom of the
yeah,
video, because I know I get loads of questions around, kind of alternative health practitioners and, just where you can find out information. Another good website to look at is drax.com, and then there's also the Crispy Cancer website, which is fantastic for those wanting to clean up their diet as a result of illness as well.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, I just feel that, once we kind of step onto this journey of awakening, and obviously it's different for all kinds of people, but, it quite often comes about, and I hear this time and time again, a change in diet, a change to a clean diet, a change to clean water, getting rid of the television. Because as far as I'm concerned, the most kind of, insidious parts of the mind control system are the most obvious: the television, the food,
yeah,
and the water supply. And if you can cut those off, then you will, in my opinion, and, as you say, and so many other people that I talk to, you will experience, an accelerated kind of rate of awakening, which will help you to then springboard into a life more in line with your hopes and with your dreams, most definitely. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting time to be living in, because so many people are rejecting the status quo, and they are starting to live in alternative ways, whether that be traveling in a van, or living in a off-grid community. People are building their own houses. People are taking back some control over their own lives, so that they don't have to basically be a slave working on minimum wage. And I've spoken about before this kind of strange idea we have about where we live, and about the fact that we're willing to sink so much money into this big, heavy bricks and mortar objects, which is actually inhabiting one tiny part of this world, when, I feel we're here to experience as much of this beautiful planet as we can. And it is a beautiful planet, despite all the kind of bad stuff that's happening. And again, like you said, I think it's so important to retain a general attitude of positivity,
yes, exactly.
whilst not getting apathetic as well. We still have to stand up for those who are less fortunate than ourselves in
Yes,
any way we can. And one of the ways we can is how we spend our money. So thanks very much for that. And I
yeah,
think that is so important, which is why I'm always posting, about these kind of small brands, organic brands who are doing the right thing on my page, because, we need to support these guys, otherwise they're going to go out of business. As we know, the agenda is to get as many GMOs into the shops as possible. And so, spend your money wisely. Anyway, thanks very much for talking
yeah.
to me today. And if you guys have got anything to add about what you might be doing to free yourself up in terms of, stepping into the life that you want to be living, I'd be really interested to hear from you. Have a great day. Thanks.